us for our annual Molly Ivins tribute. Normally we have more alcohol involved, but of course I have no idea what you have in your hand. So first I want to thank our sponsors. We have many sponsors for this event, and Mr. Bullard will show on the screen the list of sponsors that we have. And in addition to that, we have a very, very special guest. And of course, Senator West is always a special guest, but right now I am talking about the Gloria Campos. It is my honor to introduce her. She will be our moderator. She has a 40-year journalism career in broadcast journalism. Most of us know her as the anchor on WFAA, where she was a reporter, a broadcast journalist since 1984. She has so many awards, it was very difficult to narrow them down to 3, but I have done that. Number 1, I wanted y'all to know that she received the Buck Murrah Award for Career Achievement from the Press Club of Dallas. It's one of their highest award, if not the highest award. Number 2, I wanted you to know that she has been inducted into the Texas Intercollegiate Press Association Hall of Fame. And third, I want you to know that she was voted as TV Personality of the Year by the Woman of the Year by the La Femme du Monde. And I picked that one just because I wanted to say La Femme du Monde.
Okay.
One of her biggest achievements in our society today is that she and her husband have stayed married for 36 years, which already beats most everybody in the United States. She also did all her achievements while raising 2 twin boys. So she should get an award just for that. In fact, she does have a lifetime membership in the National PTA, probably for that. So I give you Gloria Campos.
Thank you, Carol. It is so good to see you and Senator West. And I want to say hello to all of my Dallas County friends. What Carol didn't tell you is for the last 2 years, I am now a resident of Blanco County, which you may or may not know is just west of Austin, and it is a heavily Republican area. But Wendy Davis is running for Congress, so we're very excited that she might give old Chip Roy the boot. So as Senator West and I were talking about before we got started here, is that being a journalist for 40 years, the hardest part making the transition into retirement, because I am no longer a working journalist, is that it took me a while to drum up the courage to speak out and to make my political opinions known. And it's taken 6 years, but I'm not shy anymore. So I'm so happy to join you all for this conversation with Senator Royce West, who I'm known for years and years. He was elected to the Texas Senate the year my boys were born. So 27 years he has served in the Senate. And he too has won a lot of awards, but I'm going to tell you briefly that I think most noteworthy as senator in the 23rd district in Texas. He was named by Texas Monthly, and this is not a light award because they are very discerning, right, Royce West?
They really are.
They are, and they can be kind. You didn't ever get the bum steer. That's good.
Yes.
But he was voted by the Texas Monthly as one of the 10 best legislators in Texas. And of course, as you know, he was one of the candidates in our runoff for United States Senate. And he received my vote, at least I can say that. And for the longest time, he's been practicing law. I think he said 41 years. And he is the managing partner of the law firm West & Associates, LLP. So thank you very much, Senator West, for joining us today. And then, of course, Zach, who got thrown into the in here at the last minute. We thank you, Zach, because he's also producing this event for us tonight. And as Carol told us, he is the deputy director of the Dallas County Democratic Party coordinated campaign. But he's been involved for a long time, even as an intern. Is that true there, Zach?
That's true, back in 2014.
So politics is in your blood, it sounds like.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Oh, no, I think it's a wonderful thing, because I think politics are very interesting, and they certainly haven't gotten very dull here lately. So we want to thank everybody, all our sponsors, for participating. We thank you very much for your support. You saw that's a pretty long list there. And this is the third annual Molly Ivins Mixer. And of course, she is a Texas legend, Molly Ivins. She was a newspaper columnist, author, political commentator, a humorist. Even though she was born in California, as they like to say, she got here as fast as she could. And she contributed so much lively conversation in our state surrounding politics. Molly Ivins always had an opinion on everything. And she wrote for the Minneapolis Tribune, the Texas Observer, the New York Times, the Dallas Times Herald, and the Fort Worth Star Telegram. So we're here to celebrate. Here's cheers to Molly Ivins, and in her memory, we're going to discuss her favorite topic, which of course is politics. And who better to discuss politics, especially in Texas, is Texas Senator Royce West. So let's get started. Senator, Zach, before I get started questioning you both, you want to walk through our participants and tell them how to participate and submit some questions here. They've got their own questions.
Of course, as we've grown accustomed to over the last several months, I think we've all slowly become Zoom experts. You can use the Q&A or the chat box at the bottom right of your screen. You should have an option to pop it up there if it's not yet, and type in any comments or questions, and they'll get queued right up to us, and we can include those in the discussion.
All right, so terrific. So we do invite your questions, and hopefully I'll be able to see them, right, Zach?
Yes.
Okay, so first, we know that the president just got out of the hospital, and he has the coronavirus, COVID-19. And Senator West, how big of an issue do you think now that he has knowingly contracted this and most likely helped spread the virus? How do you think this might impact the election here? Is it the October surprise that we were anticipating?
It is the October surprise, Gloria. But before I do that, I want to say to all of the participants that are a part of this evening, Gloria, thank you for everything that you have done for Dallas County. You were an icon here in this community. You still are an icon. And not only were you a great journalist, but you also gave back to the community in so many different ways. And so not only raising a family, being a wife, a journalist, but you were also a person that gave back to the community in so many ways. Our losses, Blanco's gained there. And
well,
so
yeah, I love Dallas County. I lived in the county my entire 30 years there.
That's what I'm talking about.
Very proud of that.
And I must say that you've been married 36 years. I've been married to my wife, Carol, for 33 years.
Oh,
so
right.
We're right behind you. We're right behind you.
You got it.
No, but to
So,
answer
yes,
your question, yeah, in terms, I think it shows his hypocrisy, and that when you begin to kind of look at the polls in this country, people are obviously very concerned about COVID, and we're beginning to see what Dr. Fauci has said, that it's going to be on the uptick in terms of people testing positive around this country, and we're beginning to see that. And so if you kind of if you looked at the debate the other night, you saw exactly a man, frankly, out of control, the way I look at it, and not being very coherent in terms of what needs to be done or what he would do in his second term. We know what he would do in his second term. And what I'll say to my friends that are here tonight, if you want to get rid of the virus to democracy, then we've got to turn out and vote on November the 3rd, and we'll get rid of it. It'll be gone by November the 4th, okay? We've got to do that. And so, but I think that people, when you begin to look at the polls, you're beginning to see that people do not trust Donald Trump in handling the #1 issue in this country, that is the COVID virus. We have over 210,000 people that have died on his watch. And there are things that he could have done. People now know he could have done some things that he didn't do. #1, being honest with the American people. And they're going to hold him accountable for his lack of transparency.
Now, Zach, that brings up a good question here. We've seen some action in the polls, an uptick in the number of people who don't trust the president when it comes to this virus. Is that true? What are the latest numbers?
We have. I mean, we've seen north of 50% say that they don't approve or don't trust the current president on his response or lack of response, therefore. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of days as, you know, that week period after the COVID diagnosis of his own starts setting in. But just the very early indications that have been coming out post-debate, Biden has picked up a few points. And what's very interesting is we've actually seen people that voted for Trump in 2016 now planning to vote for Biden. That was hovering around 6 or 7%, now go up to 10 or 11%. It's pretty clear we're in a change election year.
And Gloria, may I jump in for 1 second?
Yes, sir. Please feel free.
Zach, did President Obama visit Trump in the hospital? Did you have a picture of him?
Let me see if I can get that pulled up. Hold on just a second. There we go.
Oh no, okay. and you know, that funny you bring up Obamacare, because I saw an interview with a Trump supporter who said that they didn't care if the president abolished Obamacare because they have the Affordable Care Act.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. They're one and the same. You know,
Exactly. Exactly.
Exactly.
And how hard is it, Senator West, for us to try to have a normal campaign when you're constantly bombarded by misinformation and flat out lies? How do you combat? I mean, it's like a never-ending barrage.
You know, Gloria, this is what I'll say. Let me just say Texas. And you kind of look at what's going on in South Carolina with Lindsey Graham as an example. We have the best organized Democratic Party in the state of Texas that we've had in a long time, okay? When you begin to think about our state convention here, which was all virtual, the national party, frankly, used some of our best efforts here in order to have the national Democratic convention. That's how organized Texas is. And when we begin to see the organization around this country, let's talk about Pennsylvania. You know, Trump will lose Pennsylvania this time around because of its native son, Stratton, Joe Biden. Joe Biden has done the things that are necessary. The Democratic Party is together, the left, the moderate, you know, all of us are together in terms of making certain that we win. We had a division when Hillary Clinton was running. Even though she was a nominee, you still had the Bernie faction that would not vote for Hillary Clinton. I'm not hearing that at the national level or here in the state of Texas. All of us are focused on working with independents and Republicans. Think about the number of Republicans, leaders that have come out for Joe Biden.
That's true.
Have you seen any Democrats come out for what's his name?
Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, I call him 45. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you seen any come out for him? No. And so I think that even though you see some of the Trump flags waving and things like that, the level of enthusiasm for Democrats is second to none. One other point. I was at a friend's house a couple Saturdays ago, and there was this 30-year-old male who had never been registered to vote, Gloria.
30 years old, huh?
30 years old. But guess what? He's registered now, and he said he's fired up about voting, not only him, but his friends also. And so I think that we're in great shape in this country. We just need to now turn people out to vote.
That is very true. And speaking of that list of Republicans that grows, generals, Republicans that, that are coming out for Joe Biden, I saw our former mayor, Steve Bartlett, is on that list. He was a Republican congressman from Dallas. So he too is an anti-Trump or Republican. I don't know what to call them. Zach, do you have a term for them? I like to call them lapsed Republicans because, eventually they'll go back to their party if they can wrestle it away from the Trump regime there. But let's talk about polls a little bit. How's Texas looking in the presidential race, Zach?
We are neck and neck. We've had this dream of turning Texas blue since Governor Ann Richards almost 30 years ago, actually just about now. But this year is definitely clearly the most competitive. We are obviously, and at every sorts of data point, the biggest battleground state in the country. Polls have had Biden statistically tied or even ahead of the president. And that's just not something you hear of, especially here in Texas. Maybe there's a fluke poll every now and then, but we're talking one after another showing that. And we're hearing it on the ground. This past weekend, the party distributed 4,000 Joe Biden signs across Dallas County, north, south, east, and west. And one fun story, we were down yesterday and this lady drove up and she said, I am normally a moderate. I'll pick and choose my candidates, but this year, I even thought about voting for the senator, but he's so lockstep with the president. I'm going to vote against every single one of them.
Yeah, it's easier. Yes,
definitely does make it easier.
That's the way I look at it. I have cross parties myself, but not much. But this year, there was no doubt that I would vote straight ticket, and that's still kind of up in the air too. That's being relitigated?
So there has been some back and forth on that and some confusion over the last week. One of the federal judges in Laredo struck down the law that repealed straight ticket voting, but unfortunately, of course, it was quickly appealed up to the Fifth Circuit, and that reversed course within a matter of a couple of days. So just remember the slogan, don't stop at the top, vote for every Democrat. You don't even have to remember the names. There'll be a DEM next to every single name. Just vote for Mr. Dem and Mrs. Dem all the way down.
Go ahead, Senator.
In terms of polls, let me just kind of give you an idea. And I normally look at real clear politics that have been pretty consistent. Arizona, right now, Biden is up 8 points. North Carolina, Biden is up 4 points. Pennsylvania, Biden is up 5 points. Wisconsin, Biden is up 6 points. And so you see that some of these swing states that we're talking about, or battleground states, we are ahead, and we're going to, if people get out to vote, we will win this election.
Now, I saw a quick question here that popped up for just a second that it's not up there anymore, but generally the question was, there seems to be some back and forth about how to handle, from the Democrat side, the president's positive COVID, tests and his illness. And Joe Biden took down all his so-called negative ads. What's your opinion about that? Should that resume? He's back at the White House.
I think it should. I mean, we call them, what do we call them, Zach? Contrast?
Contrast ads.
Contrast ads?
Okay. Exactly. I think that he should. And they should roll them out in a very methodical manner as it relates to this campaign. I think people want civility. You got to understand, during that debate, what did Joe Biden do? Joe Biden looked into the camera and was talking to the American people. And he has done that consistently. And I think that if he stays on message, talking to the American people, talking about civility, making certain that they understand that, yes, we are now battling for the soul of our country, and we're battling in Texas for the soul of our state. And as long as he stays on message that way, I think we have an excellent chance of winning this election and also winning Texas.
And I gotta back up what the senator said there. I'm all for positive campaigning and showing the difference between you and your opponent. But the day that the president got admitted into the hospital and everyone's wishing him, including President Obama, best wishes and get well soon, they send out an email titled Lion Obama. And then they send out attack ads saying Sleepy Joe would never be able
Sleepy
to
Joe.
fight the COVID virus like this.
Right.
And I don't want to say we got to go tit for tat, but that's what we're up against in this election. And the stakes, we've said it, and I know I've heard the senator say, we got to make certain we vote because the stakes never been higher. But that is so true this year. We have everything on the line like never before.
Well, you know, being an observer of politics for, you know, since 1976, which was the first time I voted in a presidential election, is that, and I think more so now than ever before, and you all give me your opinion, that I don't mind a so-called negative or contrast ad if it's backed up by the facts. And that, I think, is the major difference here, is that the president makes these blanket statements and they go unchallenged, including in the ads. And his own tweets yesterday saying, you know, I'm going to save Social Security. Well, we've already heard Republicans in the Congress talking about cutting back funding of Medicare and Social Security, and the possibility that funding could run out in 2023, I think. So I don't mind that. How important do you think that is in this election, that Democrats give a positive but a factual message?
I think that you're seeing that. I want all of us to just kind of think, when in the history of this country, or at least recent history since Eisenhower, let's just say since Eisenhower, have we heard the president being referred to habitually as a liar?
Right.
Let that sink in. And I know we're Democrats on this Zoom call, but when have you ever heard the president habitually being called a liar, not only by Democrats, but most journalists? When they do fact checks, they turn around and say, that is not true. But he habitually does that. And also, he just wants to make up names and call people names. That is very demeaning in the office of president. And so, I say that to say that people are tired of getting up every morning and there's more mess. I'm going to use that term, mess. What mess is coming out today? Okay, you begin to look at the outstanding in this country, where you have our allies, leaders of the various countries that are our allies, making jokes about Donald Trump. That's the situation that our country's in. We've got to restore the credibility of this country internally, domestically, and also internationally.
Zach, did you want to weigh in on that?
Senator is completely right. I think the American people, at least I know I am. I mean, it's exhausting to wake up every day and wonder what's the next major headline that's going to break, or what's the next lie that's being told. And it was just flat out embarrassing to watch the debate the other night and see the president screaming and talking over everybody. And, I think it was one thing 4 years ago in that situation, and people weren't really used to that concept. But now, we're just really, really tired of hearing it and seeing it and being embarrassed on the world stage. And we're ready to bring back some civility.
Well, another question that just popped up from our chat room, a participant asked, should these debates, if there going to be any more debates? Right now, the one on the 15th sure looks in jeopardy to me. Should there be a fact checker there, and should microphones be cut off if they go over, say, the 2-minute limit there? What do you think?
Yes and yes.
Yeah. I think the other day when the first debate, when the Vice President Biden said, "Will you just shut up, man?" I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what most of Americans were thinking in the moment. So let's take advantage. Why not? Cut the mic.
Well,
they're selling a few T-shirts that say that, from what I've seen.
Yeah, and then, in terms of the host, Chris Wallace, I mean, he could not maintain control because the president would not follow the rules.
Yeah, well, and there are rules for a debate, for sure. And so after that fiasco, I mean, it was crazy. There was no decorum. It wasn't civil. It was just the president was out of control. So how useful is that, though, really, in helping voters decide? I've read somewhere that like 98% of the voters have already decided who they're going to vote for. So how helpful are they in changing hearts and minds, really?
Hey, and Zach, you kind of help us with this. I think there may be 5 to 7% of voters that have not decided. I think that watching the president's performance the other night will help Biden with some of those votes. We've already seen some of them. You look at some of the news shows that are talking to people that were undecided. Many of them have decided to vote for Joe Biden. So I think he hurt himself more than anything.
Zach, did you want to add?
Yeah, we have a much lower undecided rate in this election compared to 4 years ago. And since Rachel Bidikofer couldn't be with us tonight, unfortunately not feeling well, but something I know she would have touched on is her theory of we are in this hyper-partisanship piece of American history where both sides have really dug their heels in, and there's just a very slim, tiny piece of the electorate that truly is undecided. And even then, most of those people are leaning towards the left because they are just completely exhausted with what's going on. So these elections at this stage of the game are turnout, 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 and which side is more fired up and ready to go out and vote. And I feel pretty confident that we showed it in 2018 when we got to 48% statewide, and I think we've gotten even more aggravated and ready to vote in 2020. So I think the liberals are going to be able to gin up the base.
So how many new voters were added in that 2-year span?
Hundreds of thousands. We're at a record-breaking point in Texas history on the number of registered voters. Here in Dallas County, we've gone up several 100,000 just this year, if I remember correctly. So we've been having folks register daily. Yesterday, when we were just handing out signs, we had 2 people that came up, never voted in their life, and they registered right then and there. People are ready, and people are starting to realize sometimes it's not the best choice just to sit out. Sometimes you really got to get in the fight, whether that just means voting.
Yeah. Senator West, you want to add to that?
No, I think Zach hit the nail on the head. People are ready to vote, and the numbers are up. And so the only thing we need to do now is to make certain that if a person is having problems, they need to make certain they go to 888 our vote. 888 our vote. And
Okay.
Zach, you have another number. We need to make sure we put that up there also. What we have to do is to make certain that nobody's vote is stolen. Okay? We see what Trump is doing on a national basis. He appointed one of his donors.
Uh-oh, we lost the senator. And there was a question, Zach, there from one of our participants out there wanted to know what percentage of eligible voters. There he is. There he is. Do we have him still?
Am I back?
Yes, you're back.
Oh, okay. I apologize. Okay, but look at the post office. Look at the number of post offices that are being disassembled in anticipation of one of the largest mail voting efforts in the country's history.
Including Dallas County is what I've read.
Right, and look at what the governor of the state of Texas did last week.
Yeah.
Part of the Trump card in terms of trying to suppress the vote in urban centers. And we cannot allow that to occur. We've got to fight back. Democrats have got to make certain we get out and get independents and Republicans to turn out to vote for Joe Biden, even though we've had these voter suppression tactics.
Right. Yes, coming to us left and right. Zach, quickly, what percentage of eligible voters in Texas are actually registered? Do you have that number?
Not Texas on the top of my head, but I know in Dallas County we're over 75% eligible. I know in Travis County they're over 90% eligible registered
Wow.
voters. And there's been a lot more momentum this year. So we'll probably get a better look after today. You have until midnight to get down to the elections department if you need any updating.
Wow, wow, that's great. And you can go online, right? And you can print out the form and fill it out and then just drop it off or mail it, or what? Can you mail it at this late hour?
It's got to be postmarked. We've heard some discussions that as long as it's dated, it's one thing, but want to be safe than sorry. They have voter registrars down at the elections department at 1520 Round Table. As Gloria said, you can go to dallascountyvotes.org and print it out, have it ready to go, and just drive it down there and drop it into them.
Right, and make sure everything's accurate and that you sign it, right?
Right.
Talking about voter suppression, you know, I think I was telling the senator here before we went on that I was almost ready to pay our governor a compliment because he extended early voting, which begins on October 13th, correct? Right. And but then just days ago, he says you can only drop them off in one, you drop your ballot off if you're one of those people like me that's probably going to vote by mail. If one box, if you want to drop it off personally, one box per county. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that's not how it was, right? I think I saw that Harris County had like 17 spread out through the county.
11 in Harris County, there were 11 spread out, and in Travis County, I think they had 4. Okay.
And Dallas County?
Dallas County only had 1.
Yeah.
Okay? But it shows you that what the governor in making that decision is focused on is urban centers. That Republicans can't win. They don't win, Democrats win. And so if you limit the number of locations, what do? You negatively impact people who want to vote by mail and drop it off and make in those boxes to make sure their votes are counted.
Yeah, that's not hard for me now in my current county because the courthouse is like 12 miles away. So I can go take it personally myself, and that's not a problem, but I can see where that'd be a huge problem in Harris County, Bexar County, Travis County, Dallas County, some of our huge, widely populated counties. Let's focus a little bit too on the United States Senate. What did they have? The four senators edge the Republicans do? How are you looking at that? I want to ask both of you. What are the chances that Dems can take over the Senate, United States Senate?
Greg, you may want to answer that.
I feel pretty confident. Going into this election, it looked a little more bleaker. And the Senate path has always been kind of a tough one, but over the last several election cycles. But this year has taken a turn. As you mentioned, we need 4. We're looking fairly good in Arizona with Gabby Gifford's husband, Mark Kelly. Looking very good that he's going to be able to pick up that Senate seat there. He's up over 5 points. So there's a poll out today. He's up 10. So is Biden. We're looking great in Colorado. We're looking very competitive and possibly leaning in Iowa. We're looking good in North Carolina. So that's 4 right there. Maine is also looking like they're kind of ready for Susan Collins to take a stand, and that's take a stand outside of the Senate. So that's a 5th possibility. There's just so many options on the table. Of course, we have Texas on the table as well. So pathways open for us, and then playing defense in so many places. We've got a really good shot at least tying or getting a slim majority.
And you look at South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Jamie Harrison.
Yes.
He's tied with Lindsey Graham in South Carolina, and he's leading Lindsey Graham in raising money for that election also.
Yeah, and if nobody has taken even 45 minutes to watch the debate that they had the other night, Senator, I don't know if you caught any of that, but it's quite the treat to watch. Lindsey was on the defense the whole night. You could tell he was flustered, and he kept going back to the same thing. We can't have those liberal Democrats take over. And every question, it was COVID. We can't have the liberal Democrats take over. And that's a pretty obvious sign that he's worried about something.
He's worried. And you could also look at his demeanor. His posture was very telling. He was very fidgety. And so that tells you exactly that he was troubled by his responses, and he's troubled by this particular election.
It's a little shaky there. So going back to voter suppression, one of our participants asked is, do you expect now more or less vote by mail now that we've had the controversy about the post office and now the vote boxes? So I'm thinking, since I do live close, that I will fill out my ballot and I will walk it to my county elections office and leave it there.
This is what
I think we're going to see more people doing that.
Yes, I do. And this is what I will predict. When you begin to think in Texas, let me just say Texas. In order to vote by mail, you have to be, what, 65 years old, disabled,
Right.
et cetera.
Right.
The population that vote by mail is geared to in the state of Texas are people that have voted and they treasure that right to vote. And so I think that you're going to see more and more people who are able to vote by mail actually vote by mail and make certain that their vote is counted. Even if they have to take it to a box, whatever the case is, we're going to see an uptick in the elderly voting in this election. I predict that.
And do you think, Zach, that people should fill it out and mail it in as soon as they get it?
For sure, for sure. The applications have to be received by October 23rd. So you want to make sure you got some buffer time there to make sure that application itself is in. And, if you want to take your ballot to the elections department, that's something we're working on at the party, is to have that option for people if they need a ride to take their ballot to the elections department and get it.
Yeah, because you have to take it personally.
Yes, you
right?
have to personally, you got to present your ID like you're voting in person, but at least you know it got there. The good news on this is all of that stuff is tracked. So when it leaves the election department, when it's going through the mail system, it's all scanned and dated and all that good stuff. When it gets back to the elections, it's listed on the website if it's been counted. So there's a lot of measures in place to help the voter. Unfortunately, it does take time and persistence, and that is a barrier to many people.
Right, and that happened to me. I filled out my, when I voted in the July runoff that the senator was in, I checked the box and said I wanted to vote by mail again in November for the general election. And I'm still waiting for my ballot, right? And I was told by our county Democratic Party chairman that they should have been delivered by the 4th. And I called the elections office and got the chief election officer on the phone, and she told me, well, we're still working on it. And I had heard that that's because they had to make some last minute changes or adds to the ballot, like adding a Green Party candidate. What happened there?
There was a fairly concerted effort by both the Green and the Libertarian Party. And I won't say it happened here in Texas, but in other states across the country, we saw the Republicans assisting those candidates to get on the ballot. And we had several cases across the state where they were doing that. And there were challenges to keep them off from being a spoiler candidate. So I know there were some lawsuits deep into September that could have caused that.
Senator, did you want to address that?
No, Zach is correct. He's correct. No sense in me being duplicative.
All right, well, let's look at the Texas races here. Obviously, you're keeping tabs on some of those. And do you see Democrats making any headway in the Texas legislature, Senator
Yes.
West?
We need 9 seats in the House of Representatives. And what I see is that we should at least pick up 1 right here in Dallas County. I think that the Morgan Meyer race is winnable by Democrats, and we just need to hold on to some of the other seats in Dallas County. In addition, there are other seats that are being contested around the state in Tarrant County, Collin County, different other places. So I think that we're in a real good position to pick up the state house. And by picking up the state house, that will then give Democrats a little bit more leverage in the state legislature as it relates to laws that are passed and laws that we will be able to defeat.
How about the, the Medicaid, getting Texas, to accept that? The governor's been fighting that.
And the governor will continue to fight that. I can tell you that when Rick Perry was governor of the state of Texas, we tried to get him to accept Obamacare. And the Republican Party from top to bottom, frankly, in the state of Texas, was against expansion of Medicaid here
Right.
in the state of Texas. $10 billion, Gloria, per year we've been able to get from the federal government.
10 billion, did you say?
$10 billion per year. Okay.
Wow.
And Republicans decided that they didn't want to accept that money for the expansion of healthcare in the state of Texas. As a result, Texas is not the leading state for uninsured. We're right there at 1 or 2.
Right, right. And question here, unless Zach wants to add to that.
Senator's right. We're 9 seats away. This is the first time, Senator, correct me if I'm wrong, in what, 25 years we could take back the state house, and that's great for Medicaid and that's great for public education. And the biggest thing I'm caring about is we'll have a seat at the table to have influence on redistricting, and that's the next 10 years of the future.
Well, let me just jump in right there. There is a how should I say this? There's an investigation going on of the Attorney General of the state of Texas.
That was our next question here. How do you think that? I mean, that his own staff, right, have accused him of accepting bribes, and he's still under indictment.
Gloria, not only his own staff, we're talking about his cabinet. We're talking about his brain trust is accusing him of these crimes. Right. Now, you know something, and then the top assistant resigned, okay? And so we may end up having a special election for Attorney General, too.
Well, how do we get rid of him? He's got he was indicted in 2015, I think. And the case has still not come to trial.
I think that this case, given who has made the accusations, is probably a better case, okay? And if I'm on the other side representing him, I would use his resignation as leverage to not get charges filed against me, okay? And so, okay. Yeah, I think it's gonna play out over the next few months, and we're gonna see what really happens, whether he resigns. And if he does resign, then that's gonna leave a vacancy, and we're gonna have to, I believe we're gonna have to have a special election in order to decide who becomes the next Attorney General until the next election. If we do that, and Democrats can win that, we'll have 2 seats at the table as opposed to 1.
All right, next question. Can Abbott be beat in 2022?
Yes, he can, but it will depend upon exactly what type of Democratic turnout we have in 2020. I mean, that's, think about this. What gave us the momentum that we now have?
Beto.
That's exactly right. Now, and if we improve upon what we did in 2018 and 2020, that's going to light a fire under this party that we hadn't seen since Ann Richards. And that will help propel us into being very, very competitive in a special election for the Attorney General and in 2022.
And what happens, this is to both of you, someone asks, what if Trump makes good on his promise not to leave if he loses?
Exactly.
What do you do?
If he doesn't plan to leave, I have faith that our basic principles of the Constitution are going to remain intact. Maybe I'm being naive, but I've got some hope that if he loses and we get into this situation that he just doesn't want to leave the chair, we've got people in the government that, and I think
we'll escort him out.
Yeah, that will escort him out. We are the cornerstone in the world of having this peaceful transition of power for the last 200 plus years, and it's never been a problem. I was talking to we'll call them a stubborn family member voter yesterday, and this kind of came up. I said, "Do you really think he's joking when he says that?" And even they admitted, "No, probably not." We got to watch that closely, right. And that's the situation we're in. We kind of know how this movie ends, right? We've seen this first movie a couple of times. We just don't know what the sequel is going to bring us. We're on the edge of our seat waiting. But the best way we can just prevent that from happening in the first place is we got to vote. I mean, if we flip Texas, that's 38 electoral votes and all the other states behind it. that's a resounding victory for Joe Biden, for the Democratic Party, and a mandate, so to speak. And if we're over 300 or 350 electoral votes, you can't really challenge that. You're out of there, man.
Well, and let me add to that. You remember when Trump decided to walk out of the White House over to the church and hold the Bible upside down? You remember that, okay? And you remember that, and I can't think which general it was, but it was one of the highest ranking generals in the United States. He apologized to the American.
Yeah, he went out there with Trump. He was in his fatigues.
Yeah, he said he didn't know why he was going out there.
Right. He later apologized. Yeah.
He apologized and said that the military should never be involved in anything like that. And so I firmly believe that those persons, those many generals that have now endorsed Biden, that particular group of people will make certain that there's a smooth transition in power.
Let's talk about that a little bit more. You know, the president's got the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo and, you know, white supremacists and the KKK, all who seem to love him, and he cannot disavow their support because he doesn't want to alienate anyone. That's my take on it. What about those people? You know, they're going to these Black Lives Matter protest demonstrations and they're coming armed, and we've already had, you know, some shootings there.
Well, let me say this. I refuse to believe that the majority of Americans are like that. That's number one. Number two, people need to know that if they show up at these voting locations, it's nothing that they can do. There's nothing they can really say that would prevent you from voting. And we have gun laws that prevent them from carrying weapons within a certain distance, I believe, of voting locations and for certain inside voting locations. And the only person, my friends, that can tell you that you can't vote would be the election judge at those voting locations. That's it.
Right. And you can't just arbitrarily go into any poll and watch people vote, can you?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, you have to be there, actually appointed, right? These are actually, the poll watchers are people that are paid.
Well, I don't know whether the poll watchers are. I know that the election judges are.
Okay, but I understand that some of those positions are paid. That I thought it might be a volunteer that, you know, you have to, of course, be certified.
Right.
You can't just go willy-nilly and say, I want to see people vote.
That's exactly right.
And another thing you cannot do is you cannot wear any kind of political garb when you go vote. Is that correct?
You know, I'm thinking there was a lawsuit that, I mean, I couldn't walk in there and say vote for Royce West, okay? And so I believe you're right, but I thought that there was some lawsuit that tested that based on First Amendment rights. I could be wrong, but the general rule is you can't wear a political garb into
or buttons or anything like that, right?
Anything past 100 feet.
Right.
No electioneering close to really in proximity of the polls. All right, here's a friend of mine who's in her 80s, filled out her ballot and drove it to the Dallas County clerks. Wow, that's from my friend Pearl Garza-Fracchia. Her 80-year-old friend is determined to make sure her vote is counted.
Right.
We want to see that for everyone. You know, even Republicans, that everybody's vote is counted fairly and handled fairly. And I can understand why there's so much fear about that now, because every time you turn around, there's, like I said, the post office controversy, and then these vote boxes, and then should I mail, when should I mail? And there's a lot of rules when it comes to casting your ballot.
Right. Unfortunately, you know, here we can send a man to the moon, we can explore Mars, but we can't make it more convenient to vote in America. And I assure you, my friends, once we get control of the state house and get control back into state government, we're going to do everything in our power to make certain it's more convenient to vote in the state of Texas.
Well, that's another thing. Some states, you know, I believe I've read, once you become 18, you're automatically, you know, enrolled or registered as a voter. Should election day come as a national holiday, like I believe Mexico, you know, shuts down basically when they have an election, and should it be, you know, on a weekend? What are your feelings about those changes to how we do it now?
Zach, you want to take that first?
Yeah, I'm all in favor of making Election Day a national holiday. Texas is a non-voting state. We're not a Republican state. We're a non-voting state. And we have to make it easier to let people get into the voting booth. You know, the politicians shouldn't be afraid of the voters. Look at Senator West. He's been sent back time and time again because he's doing a good job. And if you're doing a good job, then you shouldn't be afraid and make it more difficult. But we've witnessed over the last several cycles where they have created voter ID laws. They've created shorter time periods. They've taken away our registration ability, same day registration, like we have in some states, we can't do here.
Right.
Limiting the number of hours and making it less unified, all of these things. A couple of years ago, of course, we had the local Republicans trying to come after the Dallas County folks. We saw it this year now with all this mail ballot stuff and changing the rules and threatening to take away that extra week of early voting. All of this and taking away straight ticket, which creates confusion and creates lines. All of it to make us confused and irritated and aggravated and just not want to vote. And it just makes us disbelieve in the system. So the more we can do to limit that and make it open, the better off we're going to be.
Right. That's exactly right.
And you know, we're even seeing efforts to have felons regain their right to vote.
Totally.
And that is one thing that can't happen in Texas currently, correct? Convicted felons cannot vote.
If you're a felon or if you have been convicted, you cannot vote while you are under conviction. But if you're in the county jail, Gloria, someone just put it up. If someone that is in the county jail and their case has not been heard, they can vote.
Right.
They can get an absentee ballot.
Right.
Yes.
Right. It never occurred to me that, you know, you could vote from jail, but you could, because if you're not convicted of a felony, you have every right to vote just like everybody else, right?
That's exactly right.
I'm really curious how they would handle that because at any given date, I'm sure there's quite a few people in the Dallas County Jail.
That's exactly right. You know.
Anyway, okay, here it is. In Dallas, ISD schools are closed election day to students. I don't know. Is that true? Since
That's
we have.
Yes, it will be. Schools.
Oh, that's because of the COVID.
Well, no, I think it's going to be an in-service training day for teachers.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But they will be closed, and many of our schools will be used as voting locations.
Right, and somebody asked, is Ken Paxton eligible to vote? He is. He's not a convicted felon at the moment.
Right.
He's under indictment.
Right.
Correct?
He's under indictment, yeah.
Okay. Well, someone asked a lot earlier. We've got, what, 29 days now? Something like that till the big day. What do Democrats have to do to claim the big prize? I'll let both of you address that.
Let me start off on that. What we have to do is we need to make certain that we figure out how many people have registered to vote. We've got to make certain that we redouble our efforts in order to get people out to vote. We need to make sure that our churches, our civic organizations, our fraternities, our sororities do everything in their power to make certain people turn out to vote in numbers, Gloria, that exceed what we did for Barack Obama. And you know, when Barack Obama ran for president, we had historic numbers in terms of people turning out to vote. We need to make certain that we exceed those numbers this time, at least match them if we don't exceed them. And if we do that, we're going to be very successful.
Do you think that, before we go to Zach, do you think that there was a bit of complacency about electing Hillary Rodham Clinton president, that all the polls showed she was ahead, and maybe they thought it was a slam dunk. And, she's not as exciting to me as our handsome, articulate Barack Obama, and maybe they stayed home. What do you think?
Well, I think that they did. There was a certain amount of complacency because the polls said that she was ahead.
Right.
In some of those key battleground states, she decided not to go into those particular states.
Right.
And I think that she shot herself in the foot also when she made the statement about the Trump voters, call them
deplorables.
And the Trump people took that and played it over and over and over again. And I think that hurt her also.
Yeah. Zach?
I agree. I think there was some complacency that went on. I think we did have some excitement, enthusiasm gaps. It was just a totally different campaign. And ironically, this year is a totally different campaign again. But getting across the finish line, what is very clear is we've got to remind Americans, we've got to remind our friends what is on the line. What are we really facing? What are we really up against in this particular election? I again had a conversation yesterday. It's not just about who you voted for in the primary. It's not about whether you agree 100%, but this is truly about saving our democracy. It's about saving our Constitution. And it's at this point ending COVID and trying to grab a hold. I mean, we're the only civilized nation in the world. There's actually more active cases of COVID in the White House than many countries around the world. And that should tell you something. DC itself was at a low point and trending with COVID cases. And now they're sweeping back upwards, all because of the White House. So we really, really have to remind folks that sometimes we have to get in, we have to pick somebody, and we have to keep fighting and keep moving forward. It's easy to stay home, but the impact of staying home is going to reverberate for years to come. And that's what we're feeling right now.
Real quickly, we're winding down here on our window, but we didn't discuss the Supreme Court and the nominee that the Republicans appear to be dead set to cram her in there before the election, or at least before Trump's term ends. How likely is that to happen, do you think?
Well, and I don't know the number yet, but I understand that several members on the Judiciary Committee have now tested positive for coronavirus. Okay. And that they don't have, in the Senate, you've got to be present in order to, okay, that's number one. And so if they don't have those senators, and maybe two, maybe three, then there are not enough votes for her to come out of committee. So the question now becomes, how long will those senators be unable to participate in the process? Once they're able to participate, then they may very well have the votes in order to get her out of committee and then get a vote on the Senate floor. So I don't wish anyone any harm, but the fact is that they're playing by two sets of rules now. When Barack Obama was president, and now when 45 is president. It's my hope that Democrats will be able to slow it down, and the process itself will take care of this double standard that's now been built in.
Zach, final words, thoughts?
Senator hit that. We have to slow it down with the processes, but we as citizens can support that by clogging the phone lines and sending those emails and hitting the streets. But most importantly, hitting the ballot box. We left this on the table in 2016. We knew it was there. We were paying attention, but a lot of us didn't realize, oh, it's fine. We have RBG there. Well, we don't got her there anymore, unfortunately. God
bless her heart.
God bless her heart. She held on and she fought as long as she really could. And what a coincidence. Possibly her replacement nominee event was the super spreader event that's caused everything up there. Besides we have to speak out. We have to stand up. And we have to vote to stop this. We have power. We have the ability to put some roadblocks up there. But we have to make sure that we're really, really, really loud about it, because she might be qualified. There's no arguing that she's not a qualified person, but I think one of the best comparisons was she's trying to go through the door that RBG opened and close it behind her for everybody else.
Right. Well, and what's stake here besides Roe v. Wade is also gay marriage and Obamacare. So we're talking about some very big things that could really upset and impact our political landscape for decades.
Decades, that's exactly right, Lord. And that's why it's real important that regardless of how that turns out, that we do everything we can to win the Senate back, win the presidency back, because the president is the one that will put a person up for nomination. And so we've got to make certain that we have some balance in the judiciary, because if you think about some of the great decisions that have been made, they've been made by the judiciary.
Right, right. Well,
We know Trump wants her for the election.
yes.
We know Trump, he wants her for the election because he thinks it might wind up there. And
Right.
I was too young to remember 2000. I'd like to not have to go through one and remember it.
Well, and two, if there's a landslide, then it won't be an issue, will it?
Exactly.
And that's where we'll leave it. And I'll toss it back to our Democratic Party chair in Dallas County, Carol Donovan, who's a longtime friend. I want to mention that. And thank you for asking me to participate. I had a great time visiting with you, Senator Royce West and Zach Bullard. It was nice to meet you and pick your brain a little bit. And let's see on to November and see how it all turns out. Hopefully for the best for ourselves and our country and the future of our country as well. Thank you for asking me to participate, and y'all have a wonderful evening.
Well, that's true. Well, and I want to say, I really did not want Gloria to retire, being the selfish person that I am. But I found out that once she retired, she could announce that she was a Democrat for the first time. And I'm proud that it was at one of my fundraisers that was her initial announcement.
That's right. I think you got the first check I ever wrote.
That's right. So that has been my honor. I know a lot of folks are tired. I want to thank all of our sponsors. I want to thank all of our participants and our panelists and Gloria Campos as well. You know, I think we got 4 more weeks of this. We got to keep our nose to the grindstone. We got to think of ourselves back in school and under final exams, and you just can't stop grinding and keep going until 7 p.m. on November the 3rd. Thank you all for participating.
Good night.
Good night.